It's very hard to start a startup. It's very hard to start any business. But if there were a time when it were less hard to start a startup, today would be that time. Venture capital is flush with dollars. Everyone's getting seed funding. We just saw Ella Marina, they just raised a $150 million A round. The future is completely greenfield. Like, the future has not been built and it's being built today. Best time, in my opinion, in history to start a startup right now. It's very easy to start a startup. My name is Boris Epstein, and this is the First 10 podcast. This is a podcast that we created to give others insight into what's happening in the startup world. I found that in working with early startups and engineers that are a part of early startup experiences have a very different take on what life is like at an early startup than what the world perceives life at a startup to look like. And especially now with the proliferation of AI and robotics and this whole kind of like global transformation that's taking place, it felt like a very important endeavor to provide insight into what's happening in the world of startups. So that's really what the First 10 podcast is about. And the first 2 seasons we focused on early startup stories, but not necessarily present day early startup stories. We brought in some real legends of the startup space who had incredible startup experiences, but as part of startups that are now large, more successful organizations. And this season we really wanted to hone in on what's happening in the world of startups today. And so we brought in founders who are just raised their seed round and have a 5-person team, and it really feels every day like it's them against the world. And we wanted to give them a platform to tell their story and give the world a sense of what it's like to build in today's day and age. And it's moving fast. Like, I know this episode is going to be talking about predictions, and we're going to talk a lot about what's happening in the world at 2026. I took a quick listen at last year's predictions, 2025, and we were literally talking about the concept of agents. And we're like, I wonder if agents are going to make their way into jobs. And I wonder if people are going to, ask about agent experience. And now, like, every single AI engineer, like, has to know how to build an agent. Like, and so that was just 1 year. So it's crazy how fast the world has moved. And I really want, this podcast and this platform to be a stamp in time. It's what I tell all my guests. I want this to be a stamp in time. I ask them all to predict the future, something AI is going to take over the world, something it's going to be a very balanced evolution. And I want to be able to go back to this, like in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, when some of these startups are like mega billion-dollar organizations, and say, like, this is what this person thought at this moment in time. Going back a year to 2025 predictions, I predicted that 2025 is going to be a big financial boom, a lot of up and to the right, and that did happen. And I also predicted that Bitcoin was going to hit 500K. That did not happen. In fact, Bitcoin. It did peak at 125, so it was nice, and for the crypto world did appreciate that. But it ended the year in the 80s. So off on that, but I still am a big Bitcoin believer. I'm still a big believer that the world is going to orient around seeing Bitcoin as a very valuable asset, and it'll continue to grow. And maybe my 500K number didn't come true last year, but I do see that in the future. I did call NFTs making a comeback. I am still sitting on a couple of NFTs, so we'll call that wishful thinking. I don't think they quite made the comeback that I predicted. I'm not sure that they will make the comeback that I want them to make. If anyone is in the market for a hot doodle, by the way, I've got yours. But I do think that NFTs may make a comeback, not in their exact form, but more as a tokenized asset. That I do see the market moving towards, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to 2026 predictions. I also did predict that we would see a bigger year in IPOs. I do think the current administration is going to be market friendly, and I do think that private companies have been pent up, and I do think that we will see a flood of IPOs hitting the market. I was a little ambitious in thinking that would happen in this past year. We did see some IPOs make their way out onto the scene, and the market was very happy about that. And there continues to be a massive buildup. And so we'll talk a little more about what's in store for 2026 in the IPO spectrum. We'll say, yeah, we'll kind of, 6, 7. We'll give ourselves a 6, 7 on that one. Prediction number 2 was that AI-based services will redefine SaaS. And I think that absolutely came true. I don't know what business out there is buying SaaS software that doesn't have an AI component. But if there is one, I want to interview. I want you on my podcast, and I want you to tell us your thinking behind buying SaaS that doesn't include an AI component. I would like to know that person because I see the world of SaaS evolving to AI-based enterprise or AI-based business services. AI agents will be the new apps was our third prediction. It's funny, I listened back to last year's episode, and last year agents were just making their way onto the scene. They were so new that we hadn't yet even seen them in the world of engineering requirements. Like no companies were even asking for engineering experience building agents. Like they were that new. They were just that new making their way into the scene. This year, every single company that's building in the AI space needs their engineers to have agentic development experience. So it's crazy how in just 1 year, the world went from no one needs to know how to do this to everyone needs to know how to do this. And that I think is the biggest indicator of AI agents being the future of software. Every engineer is required to know how to build them. That means they're going to be built into every technology that's out there. And that means they're going to find their way into the world of, what people are using to, conduct their day-to-day activities. I'm gonna call both those massive hits. But don't take my word for the hit on these predictions. Enterprise spending on Gen AI last year surged to $37 billion in 2025, a 3.2x year-over-year increase. And I'm going to predict this year's number is going to well exceed last year's number. So we're going to call it here first. There's also McKinsey put out a report. McKinsey has to stay relevant, right? Because they're in the business of consulting and AI is eating consulting. So McKinsey has to stay relevant. But 23% of respondents to McKinsey's State of AI report stated that their organizations are scaling an AI agentic system somewhere in their enterprise. So thank you, McKinsey, for that brilliant value. I'm sure you made a lot of money off of the creation of that very valuable general report there. And it was probably written by AI. Moving into our next prediction number 4, hiring will surge globally as AI reshapes the startup landscape. I'm going to call that one a hit. I mean, I actually don't know, to be honest with you. I'll just, we focus a lot of our hiring on the US and US hiring, at least in the AI side of the sphere, has definitely boomed. There's been, a negative impact on the non-AI related job front. But globally, we did see a report that LATAM hiring increased considerably. And there's also been word of substantial increase in technical hiring in the Middle East. There's been a considerable amount of investment in areas like UAE, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Israel. We're starting to see AI startups expand into those regions. There's a massive boom happening in that region of the world. No pun intended, given all the conflict in the area. But AI is definitely global. There's no doubt that this is, there's no doubt that this is a global phenomenon. And hiring follows where the technical interest is, and there's no doubt this is a global effort here. Most companies are still hiring locally. There's a heavy emphasis on in-person collaboration, 5 days a week. We still have to, talk to all candidates about how many days in the week they're willing to be in the office. We did experience the meteoric, fiasco last year. For those that don't remember, it was like, are you even really a startup if Sompirek didn't work for your startup, right? I mean, he was the gentleman out of India who worked for what it seemed like every startup out there. Every startup had I thought he worked for me. I thought he worked for me, right? It's like that guy that got busted with all his girlfriends. Very funny moment. And definitely, peak meme of 2025. There was this interesting thesis and theory that AI was going to make engineering teams more efficient. And on the one hand, it is, right? So on the engineers, engineers in Silicon Valley like to talk out of kind of both sides of their mouth. On the one hand, they're efficient, they're 10x better, they're 100x better. On the other hand, they can't hire fast enough. Like we have a wait list. AI companies can't seem to hire engineers fast enough to build whatever all the kind of wonderful things that they need to build. Oh, and AI is going to replace all jobs and going to be 10x, 100 times more efficient. So which is it? The most interesting part of living today is we don't know. And so different people have completely different views on the topic. And we've had a number of guests on, and I ask every guest, I make it a point to ask every guest what they predict of the future. How will AI impact jobs? Is it going to take jobs? Is it going to increase jobs? Is it going to be a net neutral? And we've had from incredibly brilliant guests. Philip Su believes that believes that winter is coming.
3-word summary would be winter is coming. If you are one of those developers that is good enough to push into that top 50% of developers, and maybe in 3 years, the top 25% of developers, you will be fine. For everybody else, I think winter is coming means gather nuts like a squirrel.
Right. And that video has gone viral on YouTube. You should go check it out. You should comment on it. Definitely develop a perspective. Philip Su episode. Then we have Daniel Rock, right? A professor at Wharton. And he believes that AI is going to be impactful. Of course, it's huge. It's going to be hugely impactful, but just as impactful as any other, impactful technology in its respective time. And the economy is going to, the economy is going to, evolve at a very natural pace. And we're going to see we're not going to see a huge net impact on job gain or job loss in any unnatural way.
I don't think the machine god's coming anytime soon. I don't think it comes from LLMs. So what I am worried about are individuals who are really powerful with these models. I think the long-term trend of technology is to scale what one person can do. And that becomes much riskier in the future before we get the artificial superintelligence.
So two incredibly brilliant people, but with two very different perspectives. And we've actually seen in between as well. Anastasios predicts that, of course, it's going to take jobs, but maybe in the next 20 years. So, who knows where this is really going to land? But a lot of smart people have a lot of varying perspectives. And the truth is, we don't know. And that brings us to our final prediction, which was American dynamism is going to usher in a wave of fresh innovation. And I believe that's a massive hit. And we've had guests on who've talked about some really exciting technologies being built. This American dynamism is kind of a broader category that was coined by Andreessen Horowitz. It could more generally be characterized as deep tech, right? Technology that has a kind of deep technical component to it, specifically that may involve a hardware component as well. Ashley specifically shares in her episode the touch metal every day. She works for Astromechanica. They're building a fuel efficient, a hypersonic jet. I mean, stuff that'll blow your mind. And that's just one startup. They of course made it onto the American Dynamism 50 list, which is very exciting and a great place to kind of orient around the American dynamism companies that are being developed. But you could feel the energy in America around the infusion of capital, around the development of technology, around the younger generation wanting to work for the latest and greatest technology companies, whether it's in AI or whether it's in space. And Elon Musk's SpaceX is predicted to go public next year at a $1.5 trillion IPO, and it's going to take the world to Mars. And self-driving cars are all over the streets, and manufacturing is back, and countries from all over the world are investing trillions of dollars in America, and AI is going to win the global race. And I mean, that's electrifying, and that's American dynamism. And under the umbrella of American dynamism is an entire community of startups and the best and the brightest minds in the country and in the world coming together to build this future. And that is a massive hit from last year, and I expect that to massively continue in the year ahead. So in wrapping it up, looks like we nailed 4.5 out of the 5 predictions. So I'm going to call that a pretty big win for 2025. And now let's see what 2026 has in store for us on a bright, beautiful January morning. For prediction number 1, and I'm a glutton for punishment, I'm going right for the jugular here, but I'm going to say that crypto is going to make a big comeback. I'm not going to predict the Bitcoin number. Maybe I'll predict the Bitcoin number. I'll see how I'm feeling in this moment here. But I actually think it's more of an evolution. So the reason I predicted that crypto was going to make a comeback last year was because the current administration is here to unblock the industry from building what it has wanted to build for well over a decade, and that it has been blocked to build for well over a decade, specifically from a regulation perspective. So a lot of the technology has already been in place. A lot of the use cases have already been incepted, and really what the industry needed is for regulation to be set and roadblocks to be cleared for the industry to just cook. And that's what the administration said it was going to do. David Sachs, the AI and cryptos are. That's what he said he's going to do. That's why I was very bullish on crypto last year. And what I believe we saw last year was the building blocks being set for this year, 2026, to be a massive year. And and I do believe 2026 will be a big year for crypto. I actually believe these next few years will be massive. So we'll see how my timing is on that. Engineers out there, I know there's a whole community of incredible engineers who have been patiently, building in the crypto space, very mission oriented community, and waiting for these roadblocks to clear so that the industry and the technology could kind of like finally be what it is intended to be. If any of you out there are excited about working with exciting new startups, hit me up. And if you're a crypto startup and you're building and you're excited about building your early team, definitely hit me up as well. We have a lot of folks in the community that are excited about being connected to the space. Of course, we're going to continue to see the crypto assets continue to be built up. So I do believe we'll see Bitcoin continue to go up, and Ethereum and XRP and all the kind of great cryptos continue to go up as people continue to shift their portfolios into those respective assets. Stablecoins are going to be massive as a way to offset international currency volatility, as a way to literally, store digital dollars. And so there's a big movement of the financial system being moved into stablecoin as a mechanism. And so we're going to see stablecoin as a backbone of all sorts of different use cases. We already have a number of startups coming to us who are building the ability to do payments in this international way, or the ability to conduct financial transactions in that sort of way, with stablecoin as a backbone to it. So watch the number of stablecoins and the value of stablecoins in use. Watch that number just skyrocket in 2026, and watch the kind of competition amongst the range of stablecoins, and also watch the U.S. start to, and they've already said this, Trump has said this, they've talked about moving their financial system and their payment system into a crypto-based a program, calling current system outdated, which it very much is. And so watch for that to start to happen. Companies like BlackRock, massive investment fund, is talking about the tokenization of the financial system. Robinhood, you're already seeing Robinhood allow for the trading of private equity, private companies in the form of tokenized assets. You could literally, buy. Well, for that moment, you were able to buy and sell OpenAI and SpaceX shares on Robinhood itself. But those two companies are private. So how do they do that? It's tokenization. And so you're going to see tokenization be a word you're going to want to pay attention to, and a concept you're going to want to learn more about in 2026. And that moves us into prediction number 2. Prediction number 2 is that 2026 is going to be a big IPO year. There is a massive buildup of private companies that are just, angsty at the gates to be in the public markets. Companies like SpaceX has already set their intention at going public, and I actually believe that they'll be the first one to go public. It's very Elon Musk sort of a thing to do. SpaceX is going to blow the hole through the IPO market. It's going to usher in all sort of public investment dollars. We're talking about going public at 1.5 trillion. It's massive. It's going to make them one of the most valuable companies in the world right off the bat. OpenAI is talking about going public. Databricks just raised their E or F or L round. I don't even know what round Databricks is on, but at some point they're going to have to go public. Databricks, go public. Stripe is going to have to go public, though, the brothers have, famously talked about not needing to go public, not having spent $1 of any money that they've raised. Stripe's doing that well. But there's something important about being a publicly traded company. It's nice to be private. It's incredibly nice. It's incredibly convenient. You deal with a smaller number of investors. You only have to convince, 1 or 2 or 5 investors what your valuation is. You don't have to, accept the public perspective of what your valuation is. So I get the benefit, Stripe. But on the downside, nobody in the public can benefit from your success, which is a huge downside. And it's actually a big qualm of the buildup of private wealth in the AI industry. And I know they're specifically referring to what's happening in AI with, everyone getting rich off of AI, except for the, everyday person. And so, I get it, Stripe. But at the same time, think of the public, think of the people. The people want to be in on your success. And that's what, getting to go public provides, for the actual public. And so do it for the people, Stripe. Okay, let's jump to prediction number 3. So prediction number 3 is there's going to have to be a consolidation of talent. So let's call it the consolidation of talent is my prediction. And what do I mean by that? It's very hard to start a startup. It's very hard to start any business. But if there were a time when it were less hard to start a startup, today would be that time. And it's because AI development tools are plenty. So people without, hardcore technical skills are able to build something with more ease. And it's also a time where the future is completely greenfield. Like the future has not been built and it's being built today. And so for those 2 reasons, it's we'll call it the best time, in my opinion, in history to start a startup right now. And venture capital is flush with dollars. And so venture capital is flush with dollars. It's a great time to start a startup. That means there are literally thousands of startups. Everyone's getting seed funding. There's a clearing ground to get to the next phase, and the clearing ground is high, right? So the expectations for a startup to get to from seed to A is high, and so less startups are going to make it to Series A. And the clearing ground to make it to stage B, like the companies that are getting A round funding and B round funding, are incredibly impressive. We just saw Ella Marina. We just had Anastasios on as a guest. They just raised $150 million A round. Like, compete with that, right? And so what I believe we're going to see is these startups that form, that are great ideas, that are great founders, that have assembled great teams, might not necessarily have what it takes to clear the next round. And so we're going to see a consolidation of that talent. And what does that mean from a consolidation perspective? It means, instead of startup making it to Series A, that startup might find themselves, getting acquired by Meta, which is great. It's a fantastic outcome. And so Meta will announce that as an acquisition, and that startup will go into Meta, and then now that startup won't be competing for talent with the many other startups that exist. So we've already seen a number of these, acqui-hire and acquisition sort of examples. I believe we're going to see many more of them in 2026. We might also see startups merging with others. So maybe 2 startups that are working towards a similar enough mission. Might make sense for them to combine forces and, work towards something a little bit maybe more ambitious together, have a greater shot at that next clearance goal. And, interestingly, we did 2 episodes this season on this exact topic. And so worthwhile to check them out. One of the episodes was with Sarah Ali, M&A expert, who broke down some of the deals that we saw in the past year and how companies are thinking about acquisitions, how companies are thinking about the value of talent.
I think my bold prediction is we're going to see more deals that leverage kind of their unique built-in advantage and kind of dangling these GPU credits or reserve compute capacity in exchange for equity, exclusivity, acquisition, and for a startup that can be more valuable than cash in the bank.
If you're an engineer, you have a certain amount of value. If you are part of a group of engineers that are similarly talented, your value becomes exponential. right? So think about that, Mr. and Mrs. Engineer who's thinking about joining a company. Find 2 or 3 friends and consider, packaging yourselves for a startup or for an opportunity. And I think you'll find your options to considerably increase. And if you're that engineer, I would actually love to talk to you. I've done some acquisitions in my time, and it's a very exciting opportunity to represent a group of talent to the community. So if you're a founder, keep building, right? Keep building. I think the quality of founders out there is incredible, and the quality of startups that are being built is incredible, and you have to take your shots. Engineers, go work for great startups. There's incredible benefits for being a part of early startups, for your career, for your impact, for the access to technology, and for that shot, right? And then stay flexible. Everyone stay flexible for the business opportunity. And if the business opportunity says that we should go get funding for our next round, if it says that we should grind for a little longer to wait for that next round, do that. If there's an opportunity to join a larger team or be a part of a larger mission, consider that. And I do see more of that in 2026. Another episode that you might find interesting is where I talk about getting off the FANG bus. And actually, I sent out a X reply earlier today that it's I don't want to go on record, saying what I said. It may have said something like, they're walking dinosaurs. I don't think that. I actually don't think that FANG engineer is a walking dinosaur, because I think that they're incredibly talented engineers. So it's a little bit exaggerated, but it's very, very easy to see that the future is being built today, not at FANG, right? It's very easy to see today that the future is being built not at FANG, right? And so the episode really just talks about the important choice that an engineer has to make. And is, do they want to be a part of the future, or do they want a very cushy compensation and work-life package, which is also no judgment. That's totally fine. It's totally fine to optimize for that. But, let's just kind of call a spade around what is and isn't happening here. Which actually segues very nicely into our next prediction, which is that this is going to be 2026 is going to be a good year for hiring. Now, hearing me saying this is going to upset a lot of people because the bulk of what you hear out there is that jobs are being lost. There are massive layoffs. People are struggling with finding new opportunities, and that is true. That is true. And AI companies are exploding with value. They're exploding in opportunity. Robotics is just getting started. I mean, you see self-driving cars everywhere on the streets. Those are robots on wheels. We're just getting started. Think about how much of the world isn't a robot yet, and that is all being built today. Space tech, manufacturing. I mean, there are trillions of dollars being poured into the U.S. economy. Where do you think those dollars are going, right? They're going to create jobs for people to create the future. And so we're going to see an explosion of jobs in 2026. Now, these jobs are jobs of the future, right? So they require the skills it takes to build the future, right? Which is where I think we're going to find ourselves, at a crux this year. Because my view, and I don't think that this is necessarily a popular view, but I believe that those who are struggling to find jobs right now, I feel horrible for anyone who's struggling to find a job, someone who needs to provide for their family, someone who needs to provide for themselves. And it's one of the worst, it has to be the worst feeling in the world to not be able to find employment when you just really want to help somebody and want to, provide. But I believe it's a skill issue. And I believe it's that the skills of the people who are having a difficult time finding employment, or the techniques that the people are taking to find employment, aren't matching up with the interests of the companies that are massively booming right now. And so, whole different episode. It needs to be talked about. What does it take for someone who has an ambition and a desire to work but can't find a job? How do they actually find a job in today's booming economy? A whole different episode. But I do see that the U.S. is going to boom. I think the market's going to boom. I think jobs are going to boom, and that won't be what you see in the headlines. This is going to wrap nicely and connect to my final prediction, which I'm going to kind of umbrella everything that I think into this theme. But I'll start with what Philip Su said. And again, great episode, definitely worth the listen. Listen to Philip Su's episode. It's our most popular episode today. Philip Su was a early engineer at Microsoft, early engineer at Facebook, early engineer at OpenAI. Now he runs a startup, and he had a bleak view of the future. He said that if we hit just 4 or 5% unemployment, we are going to see massive unrest in this country. That's what he said. A lot of people in the comments, there's over 1,000 comments on that video, are very upset with Philip. And so Philip, not the most popular guy here, but that is what Philip caused. And at the time that he said it, I wasn't on Philip's team, right? So I see the world differently than how Philip see it. I believe that AI will create more jobs than take away more jobs. This is what I personally believe. That's what he called, and it was about 4, 5, 6 months ago, I don't know, whatever the number was. And so what we see playing out now is much closer to Philip's view than you could at least kind of squint and start to see Philip's view come into play, right? And this brings us to my final prediction, is that what I'm calling it is we're going to start to see a tale of two cities in 2026, right? We're going to see a divide start to form between those that are building in AI, those that are building in robotics, those that are kind of holders of capital assets and are benefiting from the appreciation of those assets. We're going to see a divide between that demographic and the demographic that is struggling to break in, that's feeling like they're not getting a share of the future, that's feeling like they're being left behind from all that is happening. And this is when it kind of hit me that this is happening. So we see, we'll call it what it is, right? The administration is polarizing. Trump's a polarizing character. He does things that cause people to want to come out into the streets and share a different perspective, right? We see it on a range of topics, right? Every once in a while, you'll see, as part of a demonstration, and maybe the demonstration gets a little bit more unruly. As part of a demonstration, you'll see a little bit, and I've seen this. I'm from LA, and I've seen this in LA. You'll see a poor, innocent Waymo get attacked. Why are they attacking a Waymo? This Waymo didn't do anything to anybody. It's a car. Why did this Waymo get attacked? But in multiple demonstrations, you'll see these poor little Waymos get attacked and burned, and people are upset at these Waymos. Why are they upset at the Waymos? This was my thought, right? I'm driving down the street and I see these Waymos. They're all over LA. They're here, they're there, right? And now imagine you're in the mind of this person, right? You're struggling to find a job. You're rejected by, everywhere where you apply. You're seeing headlines about Elon Musk. He's a good, bajillionaire, and he's making all his money, and OpenAI is 100 billion, all these crazy stuff's going on. And I can't feed my family, right? And I can't find a job, right? And this Waymo just cut me off, right? And so what I see as happening is those two realities are going to continue to proliferate in a very maybe not fun way. And both those realities are true, right? We call it the tale of two cities, right? It was the best of times and it was the worst of times, Charles Dickens' famous novel. And it really does feel like the best of times for those that are building in AI, right? I mean, it's January and Claude Code Opus 4.5 just hit the scene, and these people are already predicting the end of software engineering. They're predicting the end of jobs. They could build everything and anything, and they couldn't be happier. This is how, this group of technologists are spending their holiday vacation, right? And so that's, the best of times city, right? And all these IPOs, and we're going to go to Mars, and all these wonderful things are going to happen, and self-driving cars, and that's a beautiful, beautiful world if you're a part of it. right? Then the other world, right? They're struggling to buy, presents for their family and, maybe have to kind of, scrape by this holiday season. And it's not as kind of bright and cheery as, it once was. And then they kind of look at 2026 and they're like, I don't even know if my prospects are there, right? Like how's this going to go? I just don't know how it's going to go. And that world is very, very real. And what we're starting to see is a disconnect between the two. I read a post just this morning where, top college graduate expecting to, find a job, no problem, expecting his friends to find jobs, and they're struggling for no employment for 6 months, no employment for a year. And he ended this quote, and I'm gonna post it on LinkedIn today. He ended it with, "The American dream is over!" exclamation mark, right? And so it is the worst of times if you're that kid right now. And so I'm predicting, and I think we're already seeing this play out, so I don't even know how much of a revelation this is, but I'm predicting a tale of two cities. It's going to be the best of times for some. It's going to be the worst of time for others. And I don't think that it has to be. I don't think that if you're if you're going through a difficult time, I don't think that it has to be that way. And I do think there is a path to participate in all the great technology that's being built, all the great opportunity that's being created today. And I also don't think that if you're experiencing the best of times, Stripe, then consider going public, right? And creating opportunity for those who can't participate to participate, right? I mean, why not, right? I mean, share the wealth, right? And I do believe that we'll see that start to happen. I don't know in what way that will happen, but I believe we'll start to see that happen. I mean, like, please make that happen, those that are in that respective world. But that's my prediction. I'm going to go on the record. I'm going to call it. I'm on the one hand not excited to see, Waymos get attacked, these poor little Waymos. I'm on the other hand, excited to see the future. I'm an optimist. I do believe the future will be bright. I will believe the future will be bright for both cities. I believe both cities maybe will be adjoined by maybe into a mega city where we can all, live happily ever after. I'm a big believer in that. That's my prediction. That's my prediction number 5. You heard it here first. And I do want to refer to the LinkedIn post that I wrote about this just a few weeks back. Please check it out. And I want to appreciate a couple comments from some of my friends in the community. Samantha talked about, agreeing and, what looks like bifurcation is really selection pressure accelerating. Capital and talent are concentrating around teams that can make real decisions under ambiguity. For everyone else, the same macro simply feels like volatility, right? Again, tale of two cities. And, my friend Julia Koslov talked about, I wholeheartedly agree with your predictions. I will add that companies will really start to value human critical thinking skills as a complement to AI doing the dirty work. So again, an optimist and someone who believes in the, merging of the two cities, so to say, as the kind of, view of the future. So thank you again for commenting. I'm really appreciative of the community. And again, it is the belief that, the future is unfolding. We all have a hand in creating it. There isn't a certainty one way or an inevitability one way or the other. And that's what makes, being alive and being a part of it today so much fun. We have a number of predictions that our guests have made. I'm going to leave those in the notes. So please take a look at them. And then please comment on this episode with your predictions. I'm very excited to hear them. And, thank you again for tuning in to the First 10 podcast. Excited to share and excited for 2026. Wishing everybody an incredible 2026 ahead.